Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Katie, I'm a full-time artist and I love to use mixed media. Today I'm going to be sharing a video all about this Gansai Tambi watercolour set which I received for my birthday, and I'm going to be using that in this ClareFontaine sketchbook which you can see underneath. So these are both brand new art supplies for me, and I have used this once before, so the last two videos here on YouTube were scheduled because I took some time away from the internet to get married. So I'm really excited to share here on YouTube that I am now married to my wonderful husband, and we went away on a little mini moon, and so I took this with me and tested it out whilst we were away in Shropshire. So this is the spread that I created whilst we were there, so you can see the really vibrant colours from the watercolour set and how it performed in the sketchbook. I had heard of both of these things before, so I know that Emma Carlisle uses the ClareFontaine sketchbook, and I have seen a few different artists use the Gansai Tambi watercolour set. So like I said, I received these for my birthday, but although I've used watercolour before, I haven't used anything like this. I'm going to be filling a swatch page here on the left side of my sketchbook spread, and then I'll be doing a proper painting on the right. So you can see the colours because I don't use all of them in the painting, as well as how I apply them into a view. So the Gansai Tambi watercolours is from Kuretake, which is a Japanese brand. And these are traditional Japanese pan watercolours. They're supposed to be really recognisable by their vivid colour and quick dissolution. That's what it says on the packet, and for reference this is the Art Nouveau set that I'm using. So there are loads of different swatch sets that you can get with different colours, but the one I'm using here is the Art Nouveau. So it's a solid type of watercolour pressed into pans, and I have used pan sets before. Like I said, I've used Winsor & Newton before, but I'm really not familiar with watercolour. And the reason why I absolutely fell in love with this set is because it does feel more like gouache. And I use gouache a lot in my work, and I do use it quite watery compared to most artists. I know traditionally it's to be used really opaquely for really thick blocks of colour, but I tend to water it down a lot as if I was using watercolour. And so this set seemed really good for that, and I've really enjoyed using it in the few times I've used it so far. So you can see on my swatches, I'm using various amounts of water. I think the different pigments react slightly differently, so I found some needed more water to activate and some needed less. I think I probably used a little bit too much there, but I think this set is really versatile. Like I said, I use gouache in this way, and one of the reasons why I decided to take it on our little mini moon was because I didn't have to worry about bringing loads of tubes of gouache. And so I think this is going to be really helpful in the future. I'm just showing here the inside of the lid, which does have a little space to put in swatches for each of the colours, so you can see all of the names of the paints there. But I prefer to do larger swatches, so that's why I did this in the sketchbook. The sketchbook has one side which is sort of rough paper and the other side is smooth, and that alternates throughout the book depending on the page layout. So the back of this one, which was rough, is going to be smooth, and so on throughout the book. I found that it did take the paint really well. It did buckle a bit because I used quite a lot of water. So I usually use my Royal Talens sketchbooks, and this is definitely thicker paper and it's also a lot whiter. So you can see that this is pure white paper, whereas the Royal Talens are a lot creamer, so it's more of an ivory based paper. And I really enjoy working on the white. It does remind me of the Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, and I will leave a link up in the cards where I was testing 3 different sketchbooks. But of course this is a new one since then, so I'm enjoying testing this one out as well. This is the Goldline Natural Square sketchbook. It contains 32 sheets, and I got this in the size 20 by 20 centimetre, which I haven't seen before, and I thought it would be really interesting to use a square sketchbook because usually I use A sizes. And the paper is 100 GSM, so it's not super thick, and like I said, it did buckle with a lot of water, but it flattened out nicely when I closed the sketchbook once it was all dried, and I think I can work both sides really well, so I don't think it matters too much that I'm putting on a lot of water. I didn't find that it went through to the other side or made any marks. So I do put on a lot more water on my brush than I do with gouache, and you can see that here. I'm really trying to play with the blending and mixing it all together, whereas with gouache I do find it dries a lot quicker. So that was a learning curve when I was using this set, was that I couldn't just go straight in with my details. I really had to wait and let it dry first before I could then come in with my pencils and my Neocolors. Here you can see there's a lot more water on my brush, and I think that's really interesting as an artist to try these new materials and learn different ways to use them, because when I use gouache it doesn't affect the paint like this, it doesn't turn out like this on the paper. And so it was really fun to actually lean into this and try and use that blending and really play around with it. This is one of the views from our minimoon, so I took a lot of photos. We were only there a few days, but it was really nice to be in the countryside, and I have loads of photos I really want to draw from our trip. You can see on the grass where I've blended in some of the yellower greens with the brighter greens, and to tone down some of them again I just mixed in the red colour and the sort of burnt sienna colour just to try and make it more of a natural green. So I do find that the swatches in this set are really lovely. The only thing I felt was missing was a white, and so I did take a separate tube of white gouache with me. I used the Pebeo tube of gouache, so it's really affordable, and because I use so much white in my work I find it really helpful to mix in with my other colours. So that's something to bear in mind, that there isn't a white in this set, but I do think it has a really nice wide range of colours. You can see I've got the blue for the sky up there, and although I didn't use some of the brighter colours like the really bright red, like I said, it's really helpful for mixing in with the other shades. The set doesn't come with a mixing palette, so sometimes watercolour pan sets do come with that in the lid, whereas this doesn't. So again, I took that separately with me, and I used the Rowney Tear off palette sheets, which I use a lot on my channel, and again I'll link everything I'm using down below. But that was really helpful for me to mix on the side, especially when I was trying to make specific shades that weren't in the set. So I'm just using one of the brighter pink colours to add in these really nice thistles. I love this little pop of colour, and I'm actually really pleased with this painting. It did take longer than normal because I had to allow for that time to dry, but it means that I could feel a little bit looser with this because there was so much water on my brush, and because of the way that it was blending, it meant I could try different techniques, especially in the sky, which I really enjoyed doing, and making those clouds really fluffy. So as with all of my mixed media work, I like to come in with pencils, and it was really nice to see that it worked really well on this paper despite the slightly rough texture. I found that it took the pencils really well, and it does leave a bit of texture in the line, so it's quite rough, but not too bad, and I would liken this mostly to the Strathmore Mixed Media Sketchbook. I'm using a mix of pencils including the Caran Luminance, a Derwent Drawing White, and also a little grey Crayola, but I use that just to sketch out these little sheep that were in the field. I'm not very confident drawing sheep, so I found it helpful to do an outline first with the grey, and then come in with the darker tones with the Luminance and the Derwent Drawing one, just to finish them off and add more contrast. Now the fun bit, which is where I'm adding in those final touches. So I like to add more texture onto the field and lots of different scribbles and different shades of green. I'm also adding on some lines onto the flowers to make them more thistle-like, and also with the green to add on their stems. And this was the point where I felt like the piece was really working. I really loved the contrast that this was adding against that green. And I feel like I don't often add on that much detailed lines. I usually do curvy lines and scribbles, but it was really nice to define these flowers a bit more, and I think it really helped the foreground feel like it's supposed to be there. It felt right for this picture, and I think these little details really made it. So here I am talking about where I'm not very detailed. I just add some scribbly lines and things. But I do find that it helps to add some energy to the piece, and this is definitely my favourite part of any piece. Then to add on some extra pops of colour, I'm using a yellow, and I am going to come in with my Neocolors. But first I'm going to add some blue into the sky, not much, but just a little bit, and then a few final flourishes with the darker tone of the pencils, before coming in with my Neocolor 2 pastels. So I really like adding these pops of colour into my landscapes especially. I'm using the salmon pink here. Even though there was no salmon pink in the reference photo that I was using that I took, or this sky blue colour. I find that it's sort of my style to add these pops of colour in, and I just really like the way that it looks. I think it adds in more colour and energy, and I just sort of put those around the painting where I think it needs a little bit of extra colour, and I really enjoy just adding in these lines throughout. I also add in this lemon yellow, so I don't think it shows up as well on the video as it does in real life, but again it's just adding more variation, and the same with this light grey in the clouds, just adds a little bit more interest up there. And here's the final result. So I really enjoy using the Kuretake Gansai Tambi set. I really love the colours. I think it will be really helpful for taking with me or for just grabbing in my studio and not having to put out some new gouache colours onto my palette. I can just grab this and not have to worry so much. So I think from a portability and usability view, I think it's really helpful, and I know I'll reach for this a lot. I'm really pleased with the final piece, and I hope you found this helpful. I will see you next Sunday with a new YouTube video. See you later!